The morning sun cast long shadows across the grounds of Windsor Castle as Beatrice York walked slowly through the gardens where her grandfather had once spent countless hours. The roses were blooming magnificently, their petals catching the early light in a way that reminded her painfully of Prince Philip's gentle smile. It had been 18 months since his passing, yet the ache in her chest felt as fresh as if it had happened yesterday. Beatrice pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders, not because of the morning chill, but because she needed something to hold on to. The palace had been unusually quiet lately, with whispers floating through the corridors like autumn leaves. Staff members exchanged meaningful glances, and conversations stopped abruptly when she entered a room. Something was happening, something significant, but no one seemed willing to share the details with her. She paused by the old oak tree where Prince Philip used to sit and read his newspapers, claiming it was the only spot on earth where he could think clearly. Beatrice could almost see him there, his weathered hands turning the pages, occasionally chuckling at something he found amusing. He had always been more approachable than people imagined, especially with his grandchildren. While the world saw a stern, no-nonsense consort, Beatrice remembered gentle hands teaching her to identify different bird calls and patient explanations about the history of every building on the estate. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her memories. A text from her sister Eugenie. "Have you heard anything about tomorrow's announcement? Mother seems nervous." Beatrice frowned. Their mother, Sarah Ferguson, had indeed been acting strangely lately. Just last week, she had pulled Beatrice aside after a family dinner, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Your grandfather thought the world of you, darling," she had said, her voice thick with emotion. "Never forget that. No matter what anyone says or thinks, he saw something special in you." At the time, Beatrice had assumed her mother was simply reminiscing, but now she wondered if there was more to it. The Ferguson women had always been treated differently by certain members of the royal establishment. Despite her parents' divorce when she was young, Beatrice had maintained a close relationship with the royal family, particularly with her grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, and her grandfather, Prince Philip. She remembered one conversation with Prince Philip just months before his death. They had been walking these same gardens, discussing her work with various charities, when he suddenly stopped and turned to her with an intensity that caught her off guard. "Beatrice," he had said, his voice carrying the weight of his 99 years. "Being royal isn't about titles or ceremonies. It's about service, about understanding that you've been given privileges that come with responsibilities. You understand that better than many people realize." She had been touched by his words, but also puzzled by the serious tone he had adopted. Prince Philip wasn't typically one for sentimental speeches, preferring action to words. Looking back now, she wondered if he had been trying to tell her something more. The sound of approaching footsteps on the gravel path broke her reverie. She turned to see her private secretary, Margaret, hurrying toward her with an expression that immediately put Beatrice on alert. "Your Royal Highness," Margaret began, slightly out of breath from her quick pace, "I've just received a call from Buckingham Palace. The Queen's private secretary would like to see you this afternoon. They've said it's quite urgent." Beatrice felt her stomach drop. Urgent meetings with the Queen's office were never about pleasant matters. Her mind immediately jumped to worst-case scenarios. Was someone else? Had there been another scandal that would somehow involve her family? "Did they give any indication of what this is about?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Margaret shook her head. "I'm afraid not. But they've requested that you come alone, and they've emphasized that this is a private matter, not related to any of your official duties." The walk back to the castle felt endless. Beatrice's mind raced through possibilities, each one seeming more worrying than the last. She had always tried to live her life quietly, avoiding the controversies that seemed to follow other members of her generation of royals. She worked hard at her various charitable endeavors, supported her grandmother and the monarchy, and tried to honor the values her grandfather had instilled in her. Inside the castle, the familiar portraits of her ancestors seemed to watch her with knowing expressions. She paused in front of a painting of Prince Philip from his younger days, when he had first married into the royal family. He looked confident and determined, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Beatrice wished she could summon even a fraction of that courage for whatever awaited her this afternoon. Her phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. It was her father, Prince Andrew. "Beatrice, darling." His voice carried a tension she rarely heard from him. "I understand you've been called to see the Queen's office today." "Yes, this afternoon." "Do you know what this is about?" There was a long pause before he answered. "I think it might be time for some truths to come to light, sweetheart. Your grandfather was a remarkable man who made some remarkable decisions before he passed. I can't say more over the phone, but I want you to know that whatever happens today, your mother and I are incredibly proud of the woman you've become." The call ended, leaving Beatrice more confused than ever. Her father's words carried an undercurrent of emotion that she couldn't quite interpret. What truths was he talking about? What decisions had Prince Philip made? As the afternoon approached, Beatrice found herself changing clothes 3 times, unable to decide what was appropriate for a meeting whose purpose remained a mystery. She finally settled on a simple navy dress, one that Prince Philip had once complimented her on, saying it brought out her eyes. The drive to Buckingham Palace felt like traveling through a fog of uncertainty. London bustled around her as usual, tourists posing for photos outside the gates, unaware that inside, something significant was about to unfold. Beatrice wondered if her life was about to change in ways she couldn't yet imagine. She was escorted through the familiar corridors of the palace, past rooms where she had attended countless family gatherings, official events, and private moments with her grandparents. The weight of history pressed down on her shoulders as she walked, thinking of all the momentous conversations that had taken place within these walls. The Queen's private secretary, Sir Edward Young, greeted her with unusual warmth, his typically formal demeanor softened by something that looked almost like paternal affection. "Princess Beatrice, thank you for coming on such short notice. Please have a seat. There's quite a lot we need to discuss." As she settled into the leather chair across from his desk, Beatrice noticed several official-looking documents spread before him, along with what appeared to be a handwritten letter in familiar script. Her heart began to race as she recognized her grandfather's distinctive handwriting. "Before we begin," Sir Edward said gently, "I want you to know that what I'm about to share with you comes directly from Prince Philip's express wishes. He spent considerable time thinking about this decision and consulted extensively with Her Majesty before making his final arrangements." Beatrice's hands trembled slightly as she clasped them in her lap. Whatever was coming, she could sense it would change everything she thought she knew about her place in the royal family. Sir Edward picked up the handwritten letter, his own hands showing a slight tremor. "Your grandfather wrote this letter specifically for you, to be opened only after his passing and only when certain conditions have been met. Those conditions have now been fulfilled." He handed her the letter, and Beatrice immediately recognized the strong, clear handwriting that had signed countless official documents throughout Prince Philip's long life of service. Her name was written across the front in his unmistakable script. "For my dear granddaughter Beatrice, when the time is right." "Take your time reading it," Sir Edward said softly. "I'll be here to answer any questions you might have afterward." With trembling fingers, Beatrice broke the seal and unfolded the letter. As she read the first few lines, she felt the world shift beneath her feet. Prince Philip's words, written in his characteristic direct style, began to reveal secrets that would reshape not only her understanding of her own identity, but her entire future within the royal family. The letter spoke of love, of recognition, and of a grandfather's determination to ensure that merit and character would be rewarded, regardless of the circumstances of birth or the opinions of others. As she continued reading, tears began to blur her vision, and she realized that Prince Philip's final gift to her would be far more significant than she had ever imagined possible. Outside the windows of Buckingham Palace, life continued as normal. But inside that quiet office, surrounded by centuries of royal history, Beatrice York's life was about to take a turn that would surprise the entire world and fulfill the dying wishes of grandfather who had seen in her something truly special. The letter in Beatrice's hands felt heavier than any document she had ever held. Prince Philip's words seemed to leap from the page, each sentence carefully crafted to convey not just information, but deep affection and profound respect. Her grandfather's voice came through clearly in every line, as if he were sitting beside her, sharing one final conversation. "My dear Beatrice," the letter began, "if you are reading this, then the time has come for you to understand the depth of my admiration for the remarkable woman you have become. Throughout your life, you have demonstrated the qualities that truly matter in our family: integrity, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to service above self." Beatrice paused, wiping away a tear that had escaped despite her efforts to remain composed. Sir Edward waited patiently, understanding that this moment required no rushing. The letter continued, "I have watched you navigate the complexities of royal life with grace that many could learn from. You have faced criticism and judgment with dignity, never allowing bitterness to take root in your heart. You have supported your family through difficult times, worked tirelessly for causes close to your heart, and conducted yourself with honor even when others questioned your place in our family." These words struck Beatrice deeply. She had indeed faced her share of challenges, from public criticism of her fashion choices to questions about her role within the royal hierarchy. There had been times when she wondered if she truly belonged, if her father's controversial past had somehow diminished her own worth in the eyes of the institution. "Because of your character," the letter went on, "and because I believe in recognizing merit where it exists, I have made arrangements that I hope will surprise and please you. After extensive consultation with your grandmother, the Queen, we have decided that you should be granted a new title that reflects your true value to the crown and to the people we serve." Beatrice's heart began to race. A new title? She looked up at Sir Edward, who nodded encouragingly for her to continue reading. "Effective immediately upon the reading of this letter, you will be known as Princess Beatrice, Duchess of York, with all the privileges and responsibilities that such a position entails. This title recognizes not only your royal blood, but your royal heart. You have earned this through your actions, your service, and your character." The letter slipped from Beatrice's suddenly numb fingers. Duchess of York, the same title that had once belonged to her mother, Sarah, before the divorce. But this was different. This was hers by right of her grandfather's recognition and the Queen's approval. Sir Edward leaned forward with a gentle smile. "Your grandfather spent months working out the details of this arrangement. He wanted to ensure that you would have a platform from which to expand your charitable work and a position that would allow you to represent the crown with the dignity you have always shown." Beatrice retrieved the letter with shaking hands and continued reading. "I know this may come as a shock, my dear granddaughter, but I want you to understand that this decision was not made lightly. Your grandmother and I have observed your dedication to duty, your kindness to those less fortunate, and your loyalty to our family even during the most trying times. These qualities make you worthy of any honor the crown can bestow." The words blurred as fresh tears filled her eyes. All those years of wondering if she measured up, if she was valued, if her contributions mattered, and here was her grandfather's definitive answer. "Your new position will come with increased responsibilities," the letter continued. "You will be expected to take on more official engagements, to represent the crown at various functions, and to use your platform to advance causes that align with the values our family represents. I have complete confidence in your ability to rise to these challenges." Sir Edward cleared his throat gently. "If I may interject, Your Royal Highness, there are practical matters we need to discuss. Your new title comes with an increased allowance from the duchy, a larger staff to support your official duties, and priority access to royal residences for your work." Beatrice looked up, still struggling to process the magnitude of what was happening. "I don't understand. Why now? Why me?" "Your grandfather's letter explains much of his reasoning," Sir Edward replied, "but I can share some additional context. Prince Philip had been concerned for some time about the future of the monarchy, particularly about ensuring that those who truly embody royal values are properly recognized and empowered to serve. He saw in you someone who had proven herself repeatedly, yet had not received the acknowledgement she deserved. The letter had more. I am also aware of the whispers and speculation about your family's place in the royal hierarchy. Let this title serve as my definitive answer to those questions. You are valued, you are important, and you have a vital role to play in the future of our institution. Beatrice set the letter down on her lap, her mind reeling. She thought about all the times she had felt like an outsider looking in, watching her cousins William and Harry receive the attention and recognition that came naturally with their positions in the line of succession. She had accepted her role as a supporting player, never imagining that her grandfather had been observing her so closely, evaluating her contributions with such care. "There's more," Sir Edward said gently, indicating that she should continue reading. Along with this title, Prince Philip's letter continued, "I want you to have something that has been important to me throughout my life of service. You will find, along with this letter, my personal seal ring, which I wore for over 60 years. It has been present at countless moments of historical significance, and I wanted to remind you that you are now part of that continuing story." Sir Edward reached into his desk and withdrew a small velvet box. Inside was a gold signet ring, worn smooth by decades of wear, bearing the royal arms. Beatrice gasped as she recognized it. She had seen on her grandfather's hand at countless family gatherings, official events, and private moments. "He wanted you to have this as a symbol of the trust he was placing in you," Sir Edward explained as he handed her the box. "He said you would understand its significance." Beatrice slipped the ring onto her finger, surprised by how perfectly it fit. It was as if it had been waiting for her all along. The letter concluded, "My dear Beatrice, I will not be here to see how you use these gifts I have given you, but I am confident that you will honor them as you have honored everything else in your life. Be bold, be compassionate, and never forget that royal blood runs in your veins not because of an accident of birth, but because of the choices you make every day to serve something greater than yourself. Your loving grandfather, Philip." The silence in the room was profound. Beatrice sat holding the letter and the ring, trying to absorb the reality of what had just occurred. In the span of 15 minutes, her entire life had changed direction. "I should mention," Sir Edward said quietly, "that Her Majesty has asked to see you this evening. She wants to personally welcome you to your new role and discuss the announcement that will be made tomorrow." Tomorrow. The news will be public tomorrow. Beatrice thought about her family, her parents, her sister, her friends, all of whom were in for the surprise of their lives. She thought about the media attention that would surely follow, the scrutiny that would intensify, and the expectations that would multiply. But as she looked down at her grandfather's ring on her finger, she felt something she hadn't expected: peace. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen and valued for who she was, not who people expected her to be. Prince Philip, the man who had served the crown with unwavering dedication for 7 decades, had deemed her worthy of this honor. "What happens next?" she asked Sir Edward, her voice stronger than it had been all afternoon. "Next, we prepare you to become everything your grandfather believed you could be," he replied with a smile. "And, judging by what I've observed today, I think Prince Philip made an excellent choice." As Beatrice left Buckingham Palace that afternoon, the ring secure on her finger and her grandfather's letter carefully tucked in her purse, she felt the weight of history on her shoulders. But it wasn't a burden, it was a foundation upon which she could build something meaningful, something that would honor both her grandfather's memory and her own potential. The world would be shocked by tomorrow's announcement, but Beatrice was beginning to understand that shock was sometimes necessary to create positive change. Her grandfather had given her more than a title. He had given her a chance to redefine what it meant to be royal in the modern world. The evening air was crisp as Beatrice returned to Windsor Castle, her mind still spinning from the afternoon's revelations. The familiar corridors felt different somehow, as if she were seeing them through new eyes. Every portrait, every tapestry, every piece of furniture seemed to hold deeper meaning now that she understood her grandfather's true feelings about her place in this ancient institution. Her phone had been buzzing constantly since she left Buckingham Palace, but she hadn't felt ready to answer any calls. How do you tell your family that your entire life has just changed? How do you explain that a grandfather's love has transformed you from a supporting member of the royal family into someone with a title that carries centuries of history? She found herself walking toward her grandmother's private apartments, where she had been summoned for an evening meeting. Queen Elizabeth II had always been a constant presence in her life, but tonight's conversation would be different. Tonight, they would meet as equals in a way that had never existed before. As she approached the familiar oak doors, Beatrice touched the ring on her finger. Prince Philip's ring, now hers. The metal had warmed from her skin, making it feel less foreign, more like it belonged there. She wondered if her grandfather had felt the same way when he first received it all those decades ago. The Queen's page announced her arrival, and Beatrice was surprised to find her grandmother waiting in the small sitting room rather than the formal reception area. It was the same room where they had shared countless cups of tea over the years, where the Queen had patiently listened to Beatrice's worries about school, relationships, and finding her place in the world. "Beatrice, my dear," Queen Elizabeth said, rising from her chair with a warm smile. "Come, sit with me. I imagine you have quite a lot to process." The Queen looked older than Beatrice remembered, the weight of her 99 years more evident in the soft lamplight. But her eyes held the same sharp intelligence and gentle affection that Beatrice had known since childhood. "I'm still trying to understand it all, Granny," Beatrice admitted, using the informal address that had always been permitted in private moments. Grandpapa's letter, the title, "I never imagined. Your grandfather spent months discussing this decision with me," the Queen said, settling back into her chair. "He was quite determined, you know. He said that he had watched you grow into exactly the kind of person the monarchy needed, and that it would be wrong not to recognize that officially." Beatrice felt tears threatening again. "But why keep it secret? Why not tell me before?" Queen Elizabeth smiled with a hint of mischief that reminded Beatrice powerfully of Prince Philip. "Because he wanted to be certain that your character was genuine, not influenced by expectations of reward. He wanted to see who you became when you thought no one was paying special attention." The weight of this revelation settled over Beatrice like a warm blanket. All those years of feeling overlooked, of wondering if she mattered. Her grandfather had been watching all along, taking careful note of every choice she made, every way she handled pressure, every moment when she chose service over self-interest. He was particularly impressed with how you handled the difficulties surrounding your father. The Queen continued delicately. "Many people in your position might have distanced themselves from the family to protect their own reputation. Instead, you stood by us all while maintaining your own integrity. That showed him the kind of loyalty and judgment that makes someone truly royal." Beatrice thought back to those challenging years when her father's association with Jeffrey Epstein had cast a shadow over the entire family. She remembered the advice from friends and advisors who had suggested she take a lower profile, avoid public appearances, create distance between herself and the controversy. Instead, she had chosen to support her family while continuing her own charitable work, believing that running away would solve nothing. "I did what I thought was right," Beatrice said simply. "Exactly," the Queen replied. "And that is precisely why your grandfather chose you for this honor. He said that true character is revealed not in easy times, but when doing the right thing costs something." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling between them. Beatrice looked around the room at the family photographs scattered on side tables, the personal mementos that made this space feel like home rather than a museum. Tomorrow, her own photograph would join the official portraits that recorded the long history of the royal family. "I need to ask you something, Granny," Beatrice said hesitantly. "Am I ready for this? The responsibilities, the scrutiny, the expectations. What if I disappoint everyone?" Queen Elizabeth leaned forward, her expression serious but kind. "My dear child, your grandfather and I have had the privilege of observing you for 34 years. We have seen you in moments of joy and sorrow, triumph and disappointment. We have watched you interact with everyone from world leaders to charity volunteers, and you have consistently shown grace, intelligence, and genuine care for others. If we didn't believe you were ready, this conversation would not be happening. The Queen stood and walked to her desk, retrieving a leather folder that she brought back to their sitting area. "Your grandfather asked me to share this with you tonight," she said, opening the folder to reveal what appeared to be a detailed plan, written in Prince Philip's characteristic precise handwriting. He didn't just give you a title, Beatrice. He created a roadmap for how you might use it. He identified specific causes where your passion and skills could make a real difference, potential partnerships with organizations that align with your values, even suggestions for how you might modernize certain aspects of royal engagement for the 21st century. Beatrice scanned the pages, amazed by the thoroughness of her grandfather's planning. He had identified her interests in education, mental health awareness, and technology innovation, then outlined ways those passions could be channeled into meaningful royal work. There were suggestions for new types of royal patronages, ideas for using social media more effectively to connect with younger generations, and proposals for streamlining some of the more antiquated aspects of royal protocol. "He really thought of everything," Beatrice whispered. "Your grandfather was many things," the Queen said with obvious affection. "But above all, he was practical. He understood that the monarchy must evolve to remain relevant, and he saw you as someone who could help lead that evolution while respecting our traditions." As they continued to discuss the specifics of her new role, Beatrice began to feel a growing sense of excitement alongside her nervousness. This wasn't just about receiving a title. It was about being entrusted with helping to shape the future of an institution that had endured for over 1,000 years. "There is one more thing," the Queen said as their conversation began to wind down. "Your grandfather left specific instructions about tomorrow's announcement. He wanted it to be done in a particular way, at a particular time, with a particular message to accompany it." She handed Beatrice another envelope, this one sealed with the royal arms. "This is to be released with tomorrow's announcement. It's his final public message, explaining his decision and his hopes for your future." Beatrice accepted the envelope with trembling hands, understanding that tomorrow would bring not just the news of her title, but her grandfather's posthumous words to the nation about why he had made this choice. "The announcement will be made at noon," the Queen continued. "You should plan to be at Buckingham Palace by 10 so that we can brief you on the media response and prepare you for the attention that will follow. Your life is going to change quite dramatically, I'm afraid." As Beatrice prepared to leave, the Queen embraced her warmly, something that rarely happened in formal settings. "I want you to know," the Queen whispered, "that I couldn't be prouder of the woman you've become. Your grandfather saw in you everything that I see: intelligence, compassion, strength, and a deep understanding of what it means to serve others. You're going to be magnificent in this role." Walking back through the castle corridors, Beatrice felt like she was moving through a dream. Tomorrow, the world would learn that Princess Beatrice had been granted the title of Duchess of York, that Prince Philip's final had contained this stunning recognition of her worth and potential. The media would dissect every aspect of the decision. Royal watchers would debate the precedent it set, and the public would form opinions about whether she deserved such an honor. But tonight, in the quiet of Windsor Castle, surrounded by the ghosts of her ancestors and the love of her living family, Beatrice simply felt grateful. Grateful for a grandfather who had seen her true worth, for a grandmother who supported his vision, and for the opportunity to prove that his faith in her had not been misplaced. She stopped before the portrait of Prince Philip that hung in the corridor near her room. Even in the painting, his eyes seemed to twinkle with a wit and intelligence that had made him such a formidable figure for so many decades. "Thank you, Grandpapa," she whispered to the portrait. "I won't let you down." Tomorrow would bring challenges, scrutiny, and enormous responsibility. But tonight, Beatrice felt ready to face whatever came next, secure in the knowledge that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The morning of the announcement dawned gray and drizzly, matching Beatrice's nervous energy as she prepared for what would be the most significant day of her life. She had barely slept, her mind churning with thoughts of how the world would react to the news, how her family would handle the sudden spotlight, and whether she would prove worthy of her grandfather's extraordinary faith in her. Standing before her mirror, adjusting the simple navy suit she had chosen for the day, Beatrice caught sight of Prince Philip's ring on her finger. The metal gleamed in the morning light, a tangible reminder of the responsibility she was about to embrace. She had practiced what she would say to the media, rehearsed answers to the questions she knew would come, but nothing could truly prepare her for the moment when her private world would become completely public. Her phone buzzed with a text from Eugenie. "Still can't believe it. So proud of you, sister. Grandpapa always knew you were special." The family had been told the night before, and the reactions had been overwhelmingly emotional. Her father had wept openly, saying he had always known she was destined for something important, but had never imagined it would be recognized so formally. Her mother had simply held her for several minutes without speaking, tears streaming down her face as she absorbed the magnitude of what Prince Philip had done for their daughter. The drive to Buckingham Palace felt surreal. London looked the same as it always did. People hurrying to work, tourists taking photographs, life proceeding normally. Yet everything was about to change for the woman in the black car, traveling through its streets. In just a few hours, Princess Beatrice would become Duchess of York, and the world would learn about Prince Philip's final gift to a granddaughter he believed embodied the best of royal values. At the palace, a small team had assembled to manage the announcement and its aftermath. Sir Edward Young was there, along with the Queen's press secretary, several other senior staff members, and, to Beatrice's surprise, her grandmother herself. "I wanted to be here for this moment," Queen Elizabeth explained with a warm smile. "Your grandfather would have insisted on being present, so I shall represent us both." The final preparations were surprisingly simple. The press release had been crafted with care, explaining Prince Philip's reasoning and emphasizing Beatrice's qualifications for her new role. His posthumous letter to the nation had been included, its words chosen to frame the announcement as recognition of merit rather than arbitrary favoritism. "Your grandfather's letter is quite beautiful," the press secretary told Beatrice. "He wrote about duty, about service, and about recognizing character over circumstance. It should help people understand why this decision was made." As 11:30 approached, Beatrice felt her nervousness intensify. In just 30 minutes, the news would break, and there would be no going back. Her quiet life as a working royal would be replaced by something much more public, much more scrutinized. "Are you ready?" Sir Edward asked gently. Beatrice took a deep breath, thinking of all the moments that had led to this one. She thought of her grandfather's patient lessons about duty and service, her grandmother's steady example of dignity under pressure, her parents' love despite their own struggles, and her sister's unwavering support. She thought of all the charity events where she had met people whose lives had been changed by royal patronage, all the time she had seen firsthand how the monarchy could be a force for good in the world. "Yes," she said firmly, "I'm ready." At exactly noon, the announcement was released simultaneously to all major news outlets. The words that would reshape public perception of the royal family began appearing on screens and in headlines around the world. Her Majesty the Queen is pleased to announce that, in accordance with the express wishes of His late Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, Princess Beatrice of York has been granted the title of Duchess of York, recognizing her outstanding service to the crown and her exceptional character. The reaction was immediate and intense. Social media exploded with commentary. News anchors scrambled to provide context, and royal correspondents who thought they understood the family's dynamics found themselves reassessing everything they thought they knew. But it was Prince Philip's letter, released alongside the announcement, that truly captured public attention. His words, written with the authority of 7 decades of royal service, painted a picture of a granddaughter who had earned recognition through her actions rather than her birth order. Throughout my long life of service to the Crown, the letter read, I've had the privilege of observing many members of our family as they found their own ways to contribute to the institution we all serve. I have seen some who embraced their responsibilities with enthusiasm and others who struggled to find their place. Princess Beatrice has consistently demonstrated the qualities that make someone truly royal: integrity, compassion, intelligence, and an unwavering commitment to putting service before self. The letter continued, I have watched her handle both triumph and adversity with equal grace. I have seen her support her family during difficult times while maintaining her own moral compass. I have observed her work with charitable organizations, where she consistently shows genuine care for the people she serves rather than seeking personal glory. These are not the qualities of someone playing a role. These are the characteristics of someone who understands, in her very soul, what it means to be royal. It is for these reasons that I have asked Her Majesty to grant Princess Beatrice the title of Duchess of York. This is not favoritism. It is recognition of merit. This is not sentiment. It is practical acknowledgement of someone who has proven herself worthy of greater responsibility. I believe that in years to come, this decision will be seen as one of the wisest choices made during my tenure as consort. The public response was remarkably positive. Social media filled with messages of support, praising Prince Philip's wisdom in recognizing Beatrice's contributions. Royal commentators noted that the decision felt overdue rather than surprising, pointing to years of dedicated service that had perhaps not received the recognition it deserved. By mid-afternoon, Beatrice found herself in the unprecedented position of conducting her first interview as Duchess of York. The veteran BBC royal correspondent who had covered her family for decades began with a simple question. How does it feel to receive this recognition from your grandfather? Overwhelming, Beatrice replied honestly. My grandfather was someone who never said anything he didn't mean, who never made decisions lightly. To know that he saw value in my work, that he believed I had something meaningful to contribute to the future of the monarchy, it's both humbling and inspiring. What do you think he wanted to achieve with this decision? The correspondent asked. Beatrice considered her answer carefully. I think he wanted to show that in our family, merit matters more than birth order, that the monarchy remains relevant when it recognizes and empowers people who are genuinely committed to service. He saw potential in me that perhaps I didn't even see in myself, and he wanted to give me the platform to fulfill that potential. The interview continued for another 20 minutes, covering her plans for her new role, her commitment to the causes she had already supported, and her vision for modernizing certain aspects of royal engagement. Throughout, Beatrice spoke with a confidence and clarity that surprised even herself. As evening approached, the initial media frenzy began to settle into more thoughtful analysis. Editorial writers praised Prince Philip's final act as consort, noting that his decision to elevate Beatrice sent a powerful message about the values the monarchy would prioritize going forward. Royal historians placed the decision in context, comparing it to other moments when the institution had evolved to remain relevant to changing times. That night, Beatrice found herself back at Windsor Castle, emotionally exhausted but strangely peaceful. The day she had dreaded had turned into something unexpectedly positive. The public had embraced Prince Philip's decision. The media had been largely supportive, and her family had rallied around her with love and pride. She made her way once again to the gardens where her grandfather had loved to walk, carrying with her a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. At his favorite spot under the old oak tree, she opened the bottle and poured 2 glasses, setting one beside the bench where he used to sit. Well, Grandpapa, she said aloud to the evening air, you certainly knew how to make an exit. Thank you for seeing something in me that I'm only beginning to understand myself. Thank you for believing that I could be more than I thought possible. She sipped her champagne and watched the last light fade from the sky, feeling her grandfather's presence in the gentle breeze that rustled the leaves above her head. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new responsibilities, and new opportunities to prove herself worthy of the trust he had placed in her. But tonight, surrounded by the history and beauty of Windsor Castle, wearing her grandfather's ring and carrying his love forward into an uncertain future, Princess Beatrice, Duchess of York, felt ready for whatever lay ahead. She had been given a gift beyond measure. Not just a title, but recognition that her life had meaning, that her service mattered, and that she had the power to help shape the future of the monarchy her grandfather had served so faithfully. As she made her way back to the castle, she felt Prince Philip's spirit in every step, guiding her forward into a future filled with promise and purpose. His final gift had been more than recognition. It had been permission to become everything she was meant to be.